Hey, what's going on, everybody? EnteR ChazmaN here, and that's right, I am back with another Godzilla film review. If you haven't seen in the past, I've gotten to do a couple of these, and I mentioned before this is something I would like to get back into, and here I am. I'm getting back into it. We covered the original 1954 Godzilla film, and then I covered the 1955. What was it? Godzilla Raids Again. So, guess what's on the dock next? We're going right into Godzilla King of the Monsters from 1956. So, before I immediately dive in, this may be a bit shorter of a review than the two previous videos, but that is because this movie is incredibly interesting. As it turns out, if you don't know, 1956's Godzilla is actually an Americanized version brought over from the original 1954 Godzilla film. It basically contains like all of the original scenes from the movie. It's just kind of edited. There's characters and things edited in to make it, I guess, kind of try and make it an original work, even though it's technically not. Now, I guess I'll get into immediately why just that is, and that is because back in, what was it, in 1955, an Edmund Goldman, who was with the company Jewel Enterprises, he approached Toho about possibly earning the rights to from Toho about Godzilla and wanted to make his own film. And as it turns out, they ended up working out a deal which I think was for around $25,000, which as you might expect, that's not that much money now, but back in the day, it seems as though that was enough to earn you the rights to the Great Godzilla. But yeah, he essentially worked out a deal with Toho where he would get to bring on his own producers and directors, and they would get to make an Americanized version or a localization of the original movie. As it turns out, Toho would rather quickly turn around and accept this deal, and there would be an agreement that Jewel Enterprises would do a bunch of revisions. They would narrate over and dub the English version, and I don't know, I guess Toho would oversee any deletions of stuff that would be removed from the original film. It looks like also a Paul Schreibman assisted in the film's acquisition. But yeah, so Goldman brought on Jewel Enterprises to help distribute the film, and I guess he kind of came up with the idea, and what sold, I guess, Toho on the idea is that they would do the dubbing of the film and everything all in English, and they would bring on the great, or I shouldn't say the great, because he necessarily wasn't the name that he would eventually become, but he pitched bringing on Raymond Burr to play the titular main character of the film. Who was it? It was Steve Martin, yeah. So I guess I'll explain it, because I'll be honest, for me personally, when getting into this film, I had no idea who Steve Martin was, or Raymond Burr was, I should say. I hadn't really watched his previous works, which were actually some big name stuff. It really should have been things that I had kind of heard about. I probably should have known, but yeah. Why I guess getting into why I should have known is that Raymond Burr was, prior to Godzilla, he was most known for his theater work and his career in Alfred Hitchcock's The Rear Window, which is honestly, again, I'll admit, something I had never heard of. I knew who Alfred Hitchcock is, of course, but I never heard of The Rear Window. But what he's really known for is this movie kind of put him on the map, and then post this movie, literally 1 year later, he would get the role of Perry Mason. And that's what I meant by, I'm kind of disappointed in myself for not knowing his name, because of course I've heard the word Perry Mason, or the name Perry Mason. So yeah, he would get that, and then a decade later he would get the role of Ironside, which I'd never heard of, but apparently that was also a big deal for him. So yeah, they got a huge name with this guy, Steve Martin or Raymond Burr. They were able to kind of pitch the idea to Toho about getting the rights to it. So again, I'm not going to get into everything that happens in the movie, mainly because it literally is the original 1954 Godzilla movie. You've got all the same characters. You've got Emiko, Dr.Yamane, Serizawa, Ogata. The same, it's the same guy playing Godzilla, of course, in the suit. The only other new character, other than the Steve Martin, is the security officer Frank Iwanaga. And he kind of really doesn't do much. His whole purpose there is just to kind of, I guess, help direct Steve Martin throughout the movie. So yeah, he kind of just acts as though I guess like a buffer between the audience and the the characters. He kind of is just explaining what happens. He's informing Steve Martin of he's also like a translator, I guess, for Steve Martin. But I guess getting into the plot again, not going to get too deep, but it is essentially the same plot. Steve Martin is an injured American reporter who was saved from the ruins in Japan. He kind of is around during all of those major scenes from the original movie. And I guess as I'm getting into it, this is immediately one of my biggest, I guess, kind of flaws and problems with the movie is a lot of the ADR, the audio, is quite odd here. It maybe it's because of the time. I mean, obviously this is an older movie. But for me personally, a lot of the movie is, I don't want to say feels out of place, but it definitely kind of displaces me, I guess, when I was watching the movie. I mean, it's not totally awful, but I will say it also could have been a problem with the copy or the digital copy of the movie that I got, is I also felt like some of the audio was like off by like a second anyways. So again, that may not be a problem on the movie. That may have been the version I got, but honestly, like, they would talk and then their mouth would move immediately after. So it's definitely quite odd. I guess before I go any further, I did also want to say that this movie was directed by a Teruo Morse, and I mean, Ichiro Honda and Eiji Tsuburaya were also credited, but they're credited because they directed the original movie. So really, Teruo Morse is the I think he's the main one who was in charge for the Jewel Enterprises. I guess he was the one kind of handling all of the ADR and all of the other actors they got in to fill in for certain scenes and certain parts. I kind of looked into it, but apparently this Teruo Morse has a couple films on his I don't want to say discography. That's for a movie. For his I don't know, his history of films that he's directed. And to be honest, what I had seen was I had never heard of any of them. So I almost wonder if, I mean, when I looked up his name, it had said that, like, this is his main credit. So I do believe that this may have been his biggest film that he had gotten to helm or direct, I guess, up to this point. One last tidbit before I go any further. This also was the last Godzilla film filmed in black and white. Up until, for a long time, I should say, it was the last one, and then up until recent, there were movies later on that artistically would go back to black and white, but at the time, this movie was the transition into color for Godzilla, which I thought was rather interesting. This one definitely, like, I will say, I guess that is a good segue into the next idea. I also feel like because this movie was the transition into color, some of the black and white scenes in this one that are kind of placed in place of some of the scenes from 1954, they really stand out and look odd. Again, I don't know. I mean, it was only 2 years difference between the previous Godzilla movie, but the scenes that are kind of or that take the place of the older ones, they look obviously better or obviously newer. So again, that kind of leads back into my idea of like some things feeling out of place or feeling odd. The additional scenes that Jewel Enterprises put in some of the parts of the movie definitely feel odd. Like I remember watching this and thinking that, I don't know, something about it just feels obviously like it's not supposed to be there. I remember thinking some of the scenes reminded me of the movie Kung Pao Enter the Fist. if you've ever seen Kung Pao, yeah, as you can tell, I didn't necessarily take to a lot of the additions to the film that were done in terms of the audio, the added scenes. There'll be scenes where from 1954 where you remember scenes that happen. And the scenes that are added here, they almost feel shoehorned in, where like you'll see Steve Martin, he'll say, "Oh, I'm gonna go talk to Sarazawa or something," and it'll just show the back of the head of the character from a scene you remember, and Steve Martin will just happen to be there and talking to them. And it's odd when you see a scene that you remember from the original movie, and as the scene is happening, it cuts away to just Steve Martin standing in a corner going, indeed, interesting." I can't really blame the actor. I mean, I actually feel like he kind of did a good job. I can see why Raymond Burr, why he would have gone on to become such a big deal. with Perry Mason and Ironside. It's just, I don't know. I don't necessarily feel like this movie was super necessary, I guess. Everything about this feels shoehorned in. It totally feels like, to me, they were trying to capitalize on this up-and-coming actor that they were able to get, who they knew was going to probably turn into something big. So you have this up-and-coming actor, and you have this new film series that is only 2 years in that, you know, was incredibly popular over there. They want to bring it over here. Let's throw them $25,000 and get Raymond Burr to be in a Godzilla movie. I don't want to say it feels... No, I guess it does. It feels capitalistic. Not in terms of... It feels like they were trying to capitalize on those two things in the moment when they were, like, very popular, or getting very popular. So yeah, I guess getting back into the scenes, every scene that you remember is here. There's, you know, them going to, I forgot the name of it. Was it? Oh, Otto Island. You got all the Otto Island stuff is there. Everything within the city when Godzilla first attacks is all there. Again, and not really much of it is different. They pull out a lot of context for certain scenes just to kind of in place put Steve Martin talking with his security officer assistant, and I don't know. To me, there's no context added. In fact, there's some that's kind of stripped away. I guess I'll kind of round up my thoughts. Again, there's not really a heck of a whole lot to say. It literally is the 1954 Godzilla film, just replaced with some audio, Americanized ADR, many scenes of Steve Martin talking to himself or talking to someone else. Normally with just him and one other person in screen. There's not a heck of a whole lot of scenes of him standing with like several people. It's normally just him and one other person, one of the newer characters that's been instituted. Again, I don't necessarily feel like the Raymond Burr actor was bad here. I feel like he did fine with what he had. Some of the narrator aspects that he adds are kind of neat, kind of cool. I enjoyed a little bit of them. So yeah, sorry this one was going to be so short. This movie was only, maybe like an hour long, and it doesn't really add anything, in my opinion, to the original 1954. The only, like, real positive I would say this movie brings to the original is that it's in English. That's it. You know, I mean, I guess you're kind of already getting, you're sensing from me the idea that I don't necessarily feel like this movie is necessary to watch. If you want to get the plot and the overall feelings and story of the original Godzilla movie, go and watch Godzilla 1954. I don't know. I feel like that movie was done better. It just feels like it's like, why? Why did you feel the need to do this other than to bring it to an American audience? Which, I mean, I guess now that I'm thinking on it, as much as I'm kind of ragging on it and wasn't super big on this film and what it was trying to do, this very well could have been a reason Godzilla took off, now that I'm thinking about it. Like, this coming over to America, like, obviously Godzilla was big in Japan, but this could have been the big reason why people in America even found out what Godzilla was. So, as much as I don't necessarily feel like it was necessary, it very well could have been a jumping point, a launching point for Godzilla in general. Alright guys, well, I guess I generally on here like to put a little score on some of the Godzilla movies. What did I give? I gave the original one an 8 or a 9. I gave the last one, I think, a 7. So, in my head, I'm gonna fight myself between, because I really do feel like this movie is a step down from the original 1954. I'm not a big fan of a lot of the aspects of this one. I want to say either a 5 or a 6. I'm going to have to go with a 6, because if I gave the original an 8 or a 9, I feel like I can't, even though I very much didn't really care for this version, I can't give it lower than a 6, because it still, in essence, is the original 1954 Godzilla film. You've got all the characters you loved, you got all of the scenes, although many of the scenes I feel like are way shorter, so I feel like the stuff that was ripped out and replaced is the reason why I would deduct a few points from this one compared to the original. Like, the scenes from the original are here, but they feel lesser than what they were, I guess I should say. I'm trying to think of a reason why you should go watch this. If you love the actor Raymond Burr, then I would say you should watch this. If you liked Raymond Burr. But other than that, I say go watch the original if you want Godzilla, you know, if you want to see the origins of the character of the film series. That's about it. If you like Raymond Burr, go watch this. But I don't know. Down in the comments, what did you guys think of my thoughts of Godzilla 1956, King of the Monsters? That is a great name, I should say. Oh, I should say, the one big addition, now that it's in my head, the one big addition that I really loved about this is the opening title screen is awesome. Like the way the drawn Godzilla King of the Monsters logo that happens at the very beginning, that was a great addition. That's like the only thing I could think of that was added that I'm like, yeah, sweet. But yeah, down in the comments, what did you guys think of my video? What did you think of my thoughts here? I would love to see if you liked, loved, or hated anything. Again, I do try and go check out the previous videos if you want to see more of me talking about Godzilla. I guess now we can talk about what I'm going to be moving on to next. I actually would like to jump immediately on this one and kind of start working on it. But I believe, what was the next Godzilla movie? Technically, yes. So as it says here, next technically would be King Kong versus Godzilla 1962. But I'm not going to immediately go into there because as I looked it up, there are technically other movies in between 1956 Godzilla and 1962. And I believe what would be next was actually, I think it was this very same year, was the movie Rodan from 1956. Yeah. So I think I'm gonna try and touch on every movie. So before we go into King Kong vs. Godzilla, you can most definitely expect I'm gonna move on to Rodan. Again, this is going to be our transition, our segue from black and white into the color films for Godzilla. So this will be very interesting to kind of tackle. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Go watch Godzilla. Go enjoy Godzilla. I love you, and I, of course, can't wait to see you on the next EnteR ChazmaN. Bye, everybody.